Hello and welcome to this new episode of the Values Workshop. This series is called The Other Side Of, and I have with me an old friend on the podcast. He's done quite a few numbers on this one when we started. Welcome, Anand, to the show. How have you
Thank
been?
you. Good. How are you?
I'm good. This series is called The Other Side Of. So, the other side of an analyst, if I've understood what you do. Could you please explain to us a little bit about what you do?
So I work for I'm a geopolitical analyst. I work for a security company that's based out of the Middle East. On a day-to-day basis, I'm in charge of collecting intel on high-risk countries, especially, although we specialize in other parts of the world as well, keeping our clients in those regions apprised of developments and helping them out on ground as well if they need in any capacity.
Okay, that sounds intriguing enough and very important enough in that sense. Um, did you opt for this kind of job, or did this job come to you because of by chance or coincidence?
I can't say that the specific realm of security was something I wanted to get into at the onset, but the wider realm of international relations was. But the specific realm of security came to me because it was just the first job application from which I received a positive response. And COVID time, so I took the first opportunity that came my way and I got into it.
Okay, so another question is, when you say geopolitical analyst, do you mean that it is different for governments vis-a-vis the capitalist setup? Is it different?
I'm not sure I understood.
In the capitalist setup, mainly the profit is the most important motto for most of us, whereas the government technically is supposed to take care of people irrespective of profits coming in or not. So how do you view this job that you have?
So we actually deal quite a few projects of ours, of course, are geared towards profit because they deal with these high profile, very wealthy individuals who want to enjoy a vacation in some remote island, for example. So we capitalize on that development to extract our profits. But on the other hand, we also do a lot of pro bono work, especially in countries that don't have a functioning government. There are quite a few in Africa and the Middle East where we aid, using these profits, we aid in furthering pro bono work to help them set up governance structures or activities that will improve the security landscape. So yeah, it's a bit of both.
Okay. It's a very important job. As I mentioned earlier also, my question to you is, daily life is not as exciting or as important most of the times. We are managing to do things which are not up to the optimum level or of excellence, of like things go wrong and we are okay with it. We adjust in Indian terminology. How do you deal with these two facets of home being home and the job being so so particular about results?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's difficult for me, and I can speak for most of my colleagues in my company, to detach after work because of the things you see and the issues you deal with, because these aren't issues that get resolved when you log off your shift. These are issues that have existed for decades in some of the countries we deal with. But in order for us to be as efficient tomorrow as we did today and to do a good job, it's important. My company lays a lot of importance on switching off completely, where it doesn't matter how bad things get in the last 5 minutes of your shift. Once you log out, and someone else takes over. So I think I strike a balance personally by getting out of my house, which is something that's important during work from home. Otherwise, you're holed up uh, in your room all the day. Go outside, get some fresh air, do some exercise to distract myself. Yeah.
Okay. Another interesting question that comes to mind. Do you deal with issues of self-importance because of your job and what it entails?
At times, yeah, when it's a report I have been working on for a while, but I think the nature of my job is as such that it really puts things into perspective, and like you not performing well, for example, at your job, uh, it doesn't bother me as much as what the consequences of that would be for people we're dealing with on the ground. So there, our issues are much larger at hand. So self-importance issues are there. Uh, they never that I'm feeling too important. That's never the case.
You were talking a little bit, let me expand on that. When you are talking about self-importance and you said that you are more concerned about the people who depend on you in terms of your job, more than your own role and you're doing a job efficiently or not. So is that a sense of service that you bring to the job itself? Does it give you a sense of, okay, I'm serving the larger good?
For some projects more than the others, definitely. Uh, Also because we cultivate these long-standing relations with our clients on ground. It's at times it's a short-lived project, but other times the project extends for years, and you're in touch with them through good and bad times constantly. So yeah, you form a good bond with them that helps you serve them better.
Okay, okay, let me explain my question a little better. Earlier you said that you're doing things for other countries at times, and it may involve that where there is no financial stake involved for you all in terms of profits, but you are doing it for the betterment of the people there because you've chosen to. Do you then have a sense of service in what you're doing, or is it just a job where you get your money and you do your job efficiently?
No, I think it's a sense of service because yeah, I for the intensity of the job and for the hours all of my colleagues put in, uh, it will be very difficult for us to reconcile all the work we put in if we look at it just as a job that pays. So we the passion with which employees of my company and other parallel security companies do their job definitely comes from a sense of contributing to the greater good.
Okay. Are there any ethical issues that have arisen in your job ever because of the nature of your job? And whatever you can share with us in terms of experiences where you had to make an ethical choice, and how do you dealt with the situation at that point of time? For
Ethical
yourself, I
choice.
mean, it need not be the greater good at that point of time, but for yourself, and you personally would do a certain thing or you wouldn't, and you find yourself in a place where you have to take a decision about that.
Um, there are. I am personally probably I've worked with clients whose past activities I've not really agreed with, but again, that's one problem of ethics. Probably also working with some governments in some countries that again I don't agree with. Uh, but that's yeah, that's there. That does happen at times, but I try and reconcile myself to the reality by saying, it that exists, but ultimately I'm helping the people in need, despite being associated with the governments or the companies.
Okay, this is very interesting because while your job is very different from how we see other jobs, one one fact that runs through all of the jobs that we do is we have to deal with other people and whom we may like or not, or may have some other ethical issues with. This is a good perspective to know what is it that you're aiming for. Then you may move away from the immediate and have the long-term perspective in your mind. Similarly, does it put pressure on your personal relationships also in terms of the intensity of your job?
At times, yeah, when I'm required to work overtime because of, I mean, as ideal is it, and I am grateful for my company to discourage working outside of shift hours, but at times, from a sense of personal obligation, I end up working overtime because I just feel like, I can deal with this crisis better because I've been part of this situation for a long time. So at times that leads me to probably cancel plans with friends or family that have been in the works for a while because of a last minute contingency. Or previously, I used to work a lot of irregular hours and night shifts that put a strain on my social network, social relationships, because I was mostly never awake at the same time my friends would be. So, yeah.
Okay. Uh, you use the word crisis often enough. We've spoken about how vital it is for you to do your job efficiently. While the nature of job has to be keeping confidences in mind for your client's sake and for the job that you do you think there is a change in your mindset about life itself because you're dealing with high pressure situations once a while, at least if not more regularly than most people, and your decisions seem to matter? It probably, quote unquote, brings the best out of you because there's no other choice. My personal thinking on this matter is that most of the time we do not have a choice. If one were to look at death were to happen to us at any point of time, it's important to give uh, weightage to what we are choosing to do in the present moment. Is how I try and look at it. Not that I'm successful all the time, but some parts of me are always aware that we have a limited time on earth and we need to maximize what we can do with it. In your case, even if it is not as uh, life threatening, quote unquote, life is always threatened considering that death could happen anytime. But in your mindset when you're working, do you see a change in your lifestyle, in your way of looking at life because of the work that you do?
Hmm, probably yes and no. I think, to answer the no bit, I think we're all human where even if you're aware of larger problems in the world,
Mhm.
uh, sometimes traffic in Mumbai annoys you. Knowing there's larger problems out there. But yes, in the sense, although you read in newspapers and articles about how bad things are, my job offered me the perspective of actually interacting with people on the ground, listening to first-hand accounts. So that gives you a whole new perspective, gives you a human face to the situation where it's not just a person mentioned in the news. So yeah, there, I mean, sometimes puts into perspective life where issues like I finished my quota of water for today, and tomorrow I don't know where water is going to come from. That's not something probably most of us in Bombay have faced. So, yeah, that gives you a new perspective.
Do you, this is just pushing it, do you think that it annoys you when people are not very deep in their outlook of what they're looking for? So this is not the flavor of ice cream that I like, and this should have been better. Or last night, me and a friend were sitting in a coffee shop and somebody sent back something. This is not as good as last time, saying it. And I was like, what a waste of resources. Once in a while, it's okay if things are not. So, do you also see that happening to you in terms of when you're out with family and friends when they are being superficial is a term that I would not want to impose upon, but right now I can't find a better term, but something which is more on the surface. How do you see that?
I'm inclined to say no, because I think I can't hold people's I can't always hold people's privileged mode of life against them, where I can't belittle your problem by saying, you know, what you're experiencing shouldn't bother you as much. Because I personally hate that being said to me, where if people are like, others have it worse. That never helps me when I hear it, because how will knowing others have it worse take away from what I'm suffering right now? At least that's what I feel. So, no, I don't hold it against people.
Wonderful. In terms of all kinds of relations require time, intent, effort. Do you find easy to strike friendships and develop new relations of sorts? Or is that a problem considering, again, the timing of the job, the kind of the job that you're doing?
Um, I'm not sure about more friends outside of a well-established circle I have, but I have a good circle from my college and school days that I do find the time to reach out to every now and then. But something interesting is that within my team itself, I've developed good friendships, because at times there's no other way around it. You're dealing with very demanding situations, and you need to have good bonding and trust with your team members. Considering the things we also see, we also bond over a lot of dark humor, because that's a coping mechanism for us. So yeah, I think no substantial challenges in that regard.
Okay. Sorry, I missed out the question. There was some question coming up, but the dark humor thing tripped me. In terms of building a team, what do you think is necessary in your kind of work? Because I'm presuming there is subterfuge happening at different points of time because of requirement of what you need to do. So how do you view honesty? In the traditional term, we all say we all should be honest all the time. How do you see that thing?
I think probably to cite an example of how my team works or how my company works is there's no culture of sir or madam. As the most junior level analyst, I can call the CEO by his name, his or her. It's a him right now, but that boils down to the point, especially in my industry, of when you are encountering a demanding situation, and if you're the only one present there, the CEO and the junior level analyst have an equal amount of responsibility to take a call and resolve the situation. So I feel in a team, it's good to have a horizontal, more of a horizontal setup where everyone is accountable and everyone takes responsibility for actions. Although, yeah, limited hierarchy is obviously still needed, because that's how you end up with a division of labor, or yeah, stuff like that.
And how do you deal with the honesty bit of it in terms of a situation? What is your take on things regarding generic understanding of honesty?
Um, I don't think there's any room for dishonesty in my sector. If you lie about something, lives are at stake. But I think there is a lot of transparency. I think, yeah, to address honesty, I think you need to be honest where you say, okay, I messed up, I accept responsibility. But for a good team to function, you also need to be honest about your own capabilities by saying, I can only take up this amount of work. I can't take up more than this, so that it doesn't hamper your efficiency. So I think you need to be honest to yourself in that regard as well. Treat a weekday like a weekday, treat a weekend like a weekend. don't take up so much work that you end up working weekends. Yeah, I'd say that.
Okay. This is more a balanced answer that you gave me. Let me explain with a question which has a bit of a story. So, say you are standing outside a classroom and the kids have just been evacuated to another room, and the terrorist comes and asks you, "Are there any students that you've seen?" Now, obviously, you have seen them and you kind of helped rescue them or not, whatever. Would you answer a yes or would you answer a no? Because honesty, traditional honesty would say, okay, go ahead and tell them what you've seen. Obviously, you can't be lying. But on the other hand, there are lives at stake. So how do you see this? And this is a very regular example that me and my friends generally end up using. So I would rather that you think of some example that has happened to you. Maybe share it with us if it is possible, or at least tell us your point of view on the ethical bit of it.
I'm not sure about an example, but yeah, I don't obviously blanket honesty when it does more harm than good. Definitely is bad. So in the example you gave, definitely I would be inclined, obviously, to say no. But yeah, I think it's all about your risk assessment, whether it does more harm than good. Maybe also in the example you gave, it's pretty clear cut, but at times you're faced with situations where there's an element of your political beliefs where some people would say honesty should be there, some people shouldn't, because maybe the outcome may or may not be politically aligned with what you want. So I honestly, when encountered with a situation, I boil it down to who's the lowest common denominator who will be affected, because more often than not, the lowest common denominator is the one that is affected the most harshly, or benefits maybe at times, but that's what I boil it down to. I keep asking myself the question, so what? So if I keep thinking, I'll see, so what, so what, so what, that takes me down a chain of thought. And if the ultimate end result is something that's overall favorable, okay, I go ahead with it.
What a wonderful answer that is. I didn't expect that coming. Very nice and worth pondering over, I think. Okay, in terms of uh, fun, how do you manage to break away from the seriousness of what is otherwise the most important part of all our lives? Works, we spend more time at work most of the time. How do you see this?
So that's interesting because work from home, uh, while it has its own benefits, it's also difficult to really bond with your colleagues. So what my colleagues and I try and do, at least those who are in Bombay or those who come visit Bombay at times, is try and pick a cafe one day to sit and work from. So you have that temporary change of physical environment while performing your job. That, in a way, despite you being on the job, is relaxing because you have the realization of people working the same thing alongside you. That's one way we relax. Otherwise, after my job, when I'm not with my colleagues, I definitely step out. Uh, I think exercise is really important. Uh, One, for me, at least, it helps me sleep better because it tires me out and my mind doesn't stop running all over the place regarding what's to be done tomorrow or what happened today. But I overall, I feel exercise also gives you a sense of achievement in that I exercised for so long today, or that I'm looking better today because of exercise. So your sense of achievement is also not something that ends up being tied only to work, which is a problem I suffer from. But yeah, working on.
Okay, good, because your answer also led me to an interesting question. At your age, there are a lot of people who now I find talking far more regularly about anxiety, stress, and depression than ever before. While neither you or I have the medical authority to talk about it, but as social beings and as people concerned for the greater good, perhaps, How do you look at things? And since you have a particular kind of job and you have a particular kind of rhythm that you got into that helps you sleep better, actually is the sleep thing that reminded me
Yes.
that people who are unable to sleep because of their uh, quote unquote imagination, because I do not know a better word. It's not to belittle their concerns. Uh, how do you see that? And if at all you were to advise somebody, what would it be in terms of practical things that can be done with it?
Correct, because it's easier said than done. It's easy for me to tell someone to do something, but I think everyone finds their own path ultimately towards what needs to be done. I found a way. It was pretty bad. My work-life balance was pretty awful the past 2 years. It took me 2 years to find a rhythm and to mentally tell myself what not to do. But I think something constant that can apply to everyone is a change of physical environment. Don't just stay in your house if you're working from home. Try and change the physical setting where you're in. So that takes your mind off work temporarily, at least, is something I feel is can benefit everyone. A lot. I tell this to a lot of my friends, but falls on deaf ears often is exercise. But some people just don't want to, which is fine. But I think, yeah, it's a difficult question to answer. But yeah, I think change of physical environment is what matters, irrespective of what you do.
Okay. Uh, okay. To people who are not working, what would you say? And are still at home and maybe are stuck in some kind of environment. I'm just thinking like if they are students or not yet ready for work and unable to change their physical environment. Is there anything in terms of mindset?
I think even if you don't have a job, you're not ready for the job. Uh, again, I think every person wants to have a sense of achievement. May not necessarily be through a job or a degree or whatever, but do something that gives you a sense of achievement and satisfaction. I guess that's a way to keep yourself going. Because also, I personally, what works for me is when things are monotonous and I'm stuck in a routine, I try and plan a trip so that I have something to look forward to. Maybe keep something in the near future that you look forward to that helps you get by your day-to-day activities.
Okay. One trick question in the end because all far too simple questions so far, I guess. Since you are on a job which requires you to be alert, I would presume. Say all these modus operandi that you mentioned right now about getting out of home and planning a trip and doing exercise, if all of it fails and you still have to deal with the problems that your mind is perhaps creating. I'm saying perhaps creating because it is true for you, but it is not necessarily true in terms of circumstance. How would you deal with something like that? Considering, and this question is being asked to you as a professional because I'm sure you take decisions based on information that may not be ideal at that point of time, but because the time is right and you need to do something. So, well, if the situation is you, the problem is you, and the time is now, what would you do in that sense? How would you take care of your mental and physical health at that point?
Good question. If there's no other option, uh, that's a again trick question, of course, as you said, but it's a weird thing for me to say because I don't necessarily believe in it all the time, but to have hope that things will get better and to hang in there for a while is all that you can do if there's nothing else you can do. But yeah, hypocritical of me to say because I never hang in there, so to say, because you can only hang in there if there's assurance of something good coming your way. Otherwise, it's just hanging in there needlessly and for no gain, right? And since nobody can predict the future, I I'm not a proponent of
Patience?
I'm not a proponent of saying good will come when there's no deadline, right?
Yeah.
मतलब, if you say good will come 2 महीने 2 साल 20 साल में आ सकता है, but till then people can keep telling you good will come the next day.
Okay.
So
No, then I want to demarcate this learning. There is a difference between being patient and hoping. You can be patient while not hoping.
yeah,
So what do you have to say about that?
probably then just be patient without while trying to detach yourself from expectations of things getting better or worse. Probably just deal with what's there at present. Very ideal of me to say, considering I don't adhere by it, but yeah.
No, the idea of putting you in a corner is because life often does that to us. Most of the times our plans are not only sidelined, they are trampled upon with impunity by life. And I would not want a very easy answer like God or hope or this to end this conversation with, considering that you have spoken about a lot of things that are important in the time and the way you act upon them. That's what your job has been. This has been a very interesting conversation, very difficult for me to ask questions, but thankfully you've been very clear and helped me through. Thanks so much, Anand, and it's been a pleasure reconnecting with you.
Thank you. Pleasure as always.
Bye. Bye.